The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete floor of Riverside Animal Shelter, but one corner remained darker than the rest. Behind thick metal bars and reinforced fencing, a massive German shepherd sat motionless, his amber eyes scanning every movement in the hallway beyond his cage. His name was Rex, though most staff members simply called him the Big One, or whispered about that dangerous dog in Kennel 12. 3 years had passed since animal control officers found him chained to a rusted pole behind an abandoned warehouse, half-starved and bearing fresh wounds that told a story no one wanted to imagine. Dr. Williams, the shelter's head veterinarian, paused outside Rex's enclosure during her morning rounds. She remembered the day they brought him in, how it took 4 grown men and 2 tranquilizer darts just to get him into this reinforced space they'd specially built for him. His medical file was thicker than most dogs who'd lived twice as long, filled with incident reports, behavioral assessments, and failed adoption attempts. "Still no takers, huh?" asked Jake, one of the newer volunteers, as he wheeled a cart of food bowls down the corridor. He kept his distance from Rex's kennel, remembering his first week when he'd made the mistake of getting too close. The scar on his forearm had faded, but the memory of Rex's powerful jaws snapping at the fence remained crystal clear. Dr. Williams shook her head slowly. "The Peterson family was our last hope this month. They seem perfect on paper, experienced with large dogs, big yard, kids grown and moved out, but one look at Rex and they practically ran back to their car." Rex's ears twitched at the sound of their voices, but he didn't move from his position in the far corner. His black and tan coat, once probably magnificent, now looked dull despite the staff's best efforts to care for him. Deep scars crisscrossed his muzzle and shoulders, permanent reminders of whatever hell he'd endured before arriving at the shelter. The truth was, Rex had become something of a legend in the local community. Pet store employees warned potential dog owners about him. Other shelters knew his reputation. Even experienced dog trainers who specialized in difficult cases had given up after just a few sessions. One trainer, a woman who'd worked with attack dogs and former fighting animals, had simply shaken her head and said, "Some dogs are just too broken to fix." But Rex wasn't always like this. Deep in his memories, buried under layers of pain and mistrust, lived glimpses of a different life. He could still remember the warmth of a small hand scratching behind his ears, the sound of laughter echoing through a backyard where he once played fetch until the sun went down. Those memories felt like dreams now, too good to be real, too painful to hold on to. The shelter operated on a strict timeline. Space was limited, resources were tight, and difficult animals couldn't stay indefinitely. Rex had already outlasted the usual 3-month limit by nearly 3 years, kept alive only by Dr. Williams' stubborn refusal to give up on him. But even her patience was wearing thin, and the shelter board had made their position clear during last month's meeting. 36. More weeks, board member Mrs. Patterson had announced, her voice carrying the weight of a final decision. "If Rex doesn't find a home or show significant improvement by then, we'll have to make room for animals with better chances." Everyone in the room understood what she meant. No one wanted to say the words out loud, but they all knew what happened. To dogs who couldn't be adopted, especially ones with Rex's reputation, the daily routine at the shelter continued around Rex like a river flowing past a stone. Volunteers walked other dogs past his kennel. Potential adopters browsed the friendlier animals in the front sections, and children pressed their faces against the glass windows of the puppy room. But Kennel 12 remained an island of isolation. Rex watched it all with those intelligent amber eyes, seeing but not trusting, observing but never participating. When feeding time came, volunteers would slide his bowl through a specially designed slot in the door, careful never to make direct eye contact or sudden movements. When cleaning time arrived, Rex would be moved to a temporary holding area using a complex system of gates and barriers that kept human contact to an absolute minimum. The other dogs had learned to avoid him too. Even the larger breeds, the pit bulls and Rottweilers who faced their own adoption challenges, gave Rex's area a wide berth during their exercise periods. His presence seemed to radiate something that other animals instinctively recognized and feared. Late at night, When the shelter grew quiet and the last volunteer had gone home, Rex would sometimes pace the length of his kennel. His nails would click against the concrete in a steady rhythm that Dr. Williams could hear from her office down the hall. During these solitary hours, he would occasionally let out a low, mournful howl that seemed to carry all the pain and loneliness of his existence. The newspaper had written about him once in an article about difficult-to-adopt animals. They'd used words like aggressive and dangerous, painting him as a cautionary tale about the importance of proper pet training and socialization. The article brought a few curious visitors, but they all left quickly after seeing Rex's intimidating presence and reading his lengthy list of behavioral warnings. Dr. Williams often wondered what Rex's first family had been like. Had they loved him once? Had children played with him in a sunny yard somewhere? What had happened to transform a puppy who should have grown up to be a loyal companion into this frightened, angry animal who trusted no one? The answers to those questions died with whoever had abandoned him behind that warehouse. All that remained was Rex himself, carrying his secrets in those watchful eyes, living each day in a prison of his own fear and the world's rejection. As the weeks ticked by, and his deadline approached, even the most optimistic staff members began to lose hope. Rex seemed to sense the change in atmosphere around his kennel, the whispered conversations, the sad glances, the way people hurried past his area more quickly than before. But fate has a way of appearing when hope seems lost, often in the most unexpected forms. And sometimes, the biggest changes come from the smallest people, carrying nothing more than an open heart and the fearless love that only the innocent possess. The bell above the shelter's front door chimed softly as Rosa Martinez pushed it open, her 7-year-old daughter Lily clutching her hand tightly. The little girl's eyes were still red from crying, and she hadn't spoken much during the drive. Over. Losing their family dog Buddy after 12 wonderful years had left a hole in their home that seemed impossible to fill. "Are you sure you're ready for this, sweetheart?" Rosa asked gently, kneeling down to meet her daughter's eyes. They'd talked about getting another dog, but Rosa wasn't certain if Lily was truly prepared. Sometimes grief needed more time to heal. Lily nodded slowly, wiping her nose with the back of her small hand. "Buddy wouldn't want us to be sad forever, Mama. He always wanted everyone to be happy." The front lobby buzzed with activity. Families browsed photo boards showing available pets. Volunteers answered questions about adoption procedures, and the distant sound of barking echoed from the kennels beyond. Lisa, the adoption coordinator, greeted them with a warm smile and a clipboard full of paperwork. "Welcome to Riverside Shelter. Are you folks looking for any particular type of companion today?" Lisa asked, her voice practiced but genuine. She'd helped hundreds of families find their perfect match over the years. Rosa explained their situation while Lily wandered toward the large windows that looked into the puppy area. Inside, a litter of golden retriever mixes tumbled over each other in playful chaos, their tiny tails wagging as visitors cooed at them from the other side of the glass. "Those little ones are adorable," Lisa said, following Lily's gaze. "Very friendly, great with children. They'll probably be adopted by the weekend." But something strange happened. As other families gathered around the puppy window, pointing and laughing at the playful antics inside, Lily stepped backward. She watched for a moment, then turned away with a puzzled expression on her young face. "Don't you want to see the puppies, baby?" Rosa asked, surprised. Lily had always loved puppies, spending hours watching videos of them online and begging to pet every dog they met during their neighborhood walks. "They're nice," Lily said quietly, "but they don't need me. They already have lots of people who want them." Lisa exchanged a glance with Rosa. In her 5 years of working adoptions, she'd never heard a child say anything quite like that. Most kids gravitated toward the cutest, youngest, most playful animals available. "Would you like to see some of the older dogs?" Lisa suggested. "We have some wonderful adult companions who might be perfect for your family." They walked through the main kennel area, past rows of hopeful faces and wagging tails. There was Charlie, a gentle beagle mix who'd been surrendered when his elderly owner moved to assisted living. Beside him, a beautiful collie named Princess pressed her nose against the gate, hoping for attention. Each dog had a story, a reason for being here, and most had volunteers or staff members who could speak glowing words about their personalities. Lily stopped at several kennels, letting the friendlier dogs sniff her fingers through the chain link. She smiled when a young pit bull mix licked her hand, and she giggled when a small terrier did backflips to get her attention, but after a few minutes at each cage, she would simply move on. "I don't understand," Rosa whispered to Lisa as they reached the end of the main kennel block. "She seems to like them, but nothing's clicking." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes it takes time, and sometimes the right match isn't obvious at first glance. There are a few more areas we can check." They turned a corner into a quieter section of the building. The kennels here were larger but fewer in number, and the atmosphere felt different, somehow. Heavier. This was where the shelter housed animals with special needs, behavioral challenges, or those who'd been waiting the longest for homes. "These dogs might need a little more patience," Lisa explained, her voice dropping to match the more subdued environment. "But they can make wonderful companions for the right family." Lily walked more slowly here, studying each animal with the serious expression she wore when trying to solve difficult puzzles at school. She paused at a kennel, housing an ancient German shepherd mix who barely lifted his head to acknowledge their presence. Further down, a one-eyed pit bull wagged hopefully despite the surgical scars that marked his face. Then she stopped completely. Kennel 12 sat at the very end of the corridor, separated from the others by extra space and multiple warning signs. Lisa hesitated, realizing where they were heading. This wasn't part of the usual tour route. "Oh, we don't usually," Lisa began. But Lily had already reached the reinforced enclosure. Inside, Rex lay in his usual position in the far corner, his massive frame making the large kennel seem smaller. His amber eyes tracked their movement, alert but showing no interest, in approaching the gate. Most people felt uncomfortable under that steady, unblinking stare. Most people hurried past. Lily didn't hurry past. She stood perfectly still, her small hands pressed against the chain link, and simply looked at him. Not with fear or curiosity, but with something that looked almost like recognition. "Sweetie, maybe we should look at some of the other dogs," Rosa said nervously, reading the warning signs posted around Rex's kennel. The words, "Caution, Experienced, Handlers Only, and Do Not Approach" were written in bold red letters. But Lily didn't move. She tilted her head slightly, the way she did when listening to music or trying to understand something important. "He's sad," she said simply. Lisa felt her breath catch. In 3 years, no one had ever described Rex as sad. Dangerous, aggressive, unpredictable, yes, but never sad. "He's been here a long time," Lisa said carefully. "He has some trust issues that make him difficult to place." Rex's ears twitched at the sound of voices, but he remained motionless in his corner. His eyes, however, never left the small figure standing at his gate. "He doesn't trust people," Lily observed, her voice matter-of-fact rather than afraid. "Someone hurt him before." Rosa knelt beside her daughter, amazed by the calm certainty in the child's voice. "How can you tell, baby?" Lily was quiet for a long moment, still staring at Rex with that intense focus she usually reserved for her favorite books or art projects. "His eyes," she said finally. "They look like mine did after Daddy left." The words hit Rosa like a physical blow. The divorce had been finalized 2 years ago, but clearly Lily remembered more about those painful months than Rosa had realized. The anger, the confusion, the difficulty trusting that people wouldn't just disappear from your life without warning. Lisa watched this exchange with growing amazement. She'd seen hundreds of potential adopters react to Rex over the years, but never like this. Never with such quiet understanding. "Can I sit here for a minute?" Lily asked, already lowering herself to the concrete floor in front of Rex's kennel. Rosa started to object, but something in her daughter's manner stopped her. There was a calm purposefulness to Lily's actions that seemed older than her 7 years. Lily sat cross-legged on the cold floor, apparently unbothered by the hard concrete or the institutional smell of disinfectant that permeated this section of the building. She didn't try to call Rex over or make clicking sounds like most visitors did. She simply sat quietly, occasionally humming a soft tune under her breath. Rex's ears pricked forward slightly. The humming was gentle and wordless, not quite a lullaby, but something soothing and familiar. For the first time in months, his rigid posture relaxed just a fraction. "I think," Lily said to no one in particular, "he just needs someone to sit with him for a while." The next morning, Rosa found herself driving back to the shelter with a car full of picture books and a lunch packed for two. She'd spent half the night thinking about what Lily had said, about the look in Rex's eyes and her daughter's strange certainty that he just needed someone to sit with him. "You sure about this, sweetheart?" Rosa asked as they pulled into the parking lot. "We could still look at some of the other dogs." Lily shook her head firmly, clutching her favorite book about a lonely dragon who learned to make friends. "Rex needs me, Mama, I can tell." Lisa met them at the front desk with a mixture of curiosity and concern. In her years at the shelter, she'd never had a family request to spend time with Rex specifically. Most people forgot about him after their first visit. "I spoke with Dr. Williams about your request," Lisa said carefully. "She's willing to let you visit, but there are some rules we need to follow for everyone's safety." The rules were simple but firm. Lily could sit outside Rex's kennel but never reach through the fencing. She couldn't make sudden movements or loud noises, and a staff member would always be nearby, watching from a distance. "I understand," Lily said solemnly, as if she were agreeing to something much more important than shelter protocols. When they reached Kennel 12, Rex was in his usual spot in the far corner, but something was different today. Instead of the complete stillness he usually maintained, his ears were slightly forward, as if he'd been waiting for something. Lily settled into the same position as the day before, cross-legged on the concrete floor. She opened her book and began reading aloud, her young voice carrying clearly through the quiet corridor. "Once upon a time there was a dragon who lived all alone in a dark cave," she read. "The dragon was very big and very strong, but he was also very lonely. All the people in the village were afraid of him because of his size and his loud roar." Rex's amber eyes fixed on her immediately. His head tilted slightly, a gesture so subtle that Rosa almost missed it from her position a few feet away. For 30 minutes, Lily read her story, pausing occasionally to show Rex the colorful illustrations even though he remained in his distant corner. When she finished the book, she pulled out her lunch and began eating quietly, talking to Rex as if he were an old friend. "My teacher says I'm good at reading," she told him conversationally, "but I get nervous when I have to read in front of the whole class. Do you ever get nervous?" Rex didn't respond, but he didn't look away either. His usual restless pacing was completely absent. This routine continued for 5 days. Every morning, Rosa would drop Lily off at the shelter on her way to work, and every afternoon she'd pick her up before dinner. The staff began calling it Lily's reading time, and even Dr. Williams found herself making excuses to walk past Kennel 12 during those quiet sessions. On the 6th day, something remarkable happened. When Lily arrived and settled into her usual spot, Rex stood up. Not aggressively, not with the tense alertness that typically preceded his displays of aggression. He simply rose from his corner and took 3 slow steps toward the front of his kennel. "Good morning, Rex," Lily said calmly, as if his movement was the most natural thing in the world. "I brought a new book today. It's about a horse who learns to trust people again." Lisa, watching from the end of the corridor, felt her heart skip a beat. Rex was now only 6 feet from the kennel door instead of his usual 15. It might not seem like much to most people, but for Rex it was enormous progress. The breakthrough came during the 2nd week. Lily was in the middle of reading a story about a lost puppy when she noticed Rex had moved even closer. He was now lying down just 3 feet from the gate, close enough that she could see the individual whiskers on his scarred muzzle. "You're listening, aren't you?" she said softly, closing the book and looking directly at him. "I can tell because your ears move when I read the exciting parts." For the first time in 3 years, Rex's tail gave the smallest wag. Just once, barely visible, but unmistakable. Lisa, who witnessed this moment, later told Dr. Williams it was like watching ice melt in slow motion. The rigid tension that Rex carried in every muscle seemed to ease, just slightly, whenever Lily was present. By the third week, their routine had expanded. Lily would read for a while, then eat her lunch while telling Rex about her day at school. She talked about her math homework, her best friend Katie, and sometimes about missing Buddy. Rex began moving closer during these conversations until he was lying directly beside the gate, separated from Lily by only the chain-link fencing. "You know what I think?" Lily said one afternoon, carefully unwrapping a peanut butter sandwich. "I think you used to have a family who loved you very much. But something bad happened, and now you don't know if it's safe to love people again." Rex's ears flattened slightly, not in aggression, but in something that looked almost like sadness. "It's okay to be scared," Lily continued, taking a small bite of her sandwich. "After my daddy left, I didn't want to trust anyone either. I thought if I didn't let people get close, they couldn't hurt me by leaving." She held up a piece of her sandwich near the gate, not trying to push it through, just showing it to him. "But my mama taught me something important. She said that being scared of getting hurt again means the love we had before was real and special. The hurt proves we cared." Rex stared at the sandwich, then at Lily's face. Slowly, carefully, he moved closer to the gate until his large black nose was almost touching the chain link. "You miss them, don't you?" Lily whispered. "Your first family, even though they're gone, you still remember loving them." Dr. Williams, who had been quietly observing from around the corner, felt tears prick her eyes. In 3 years of behavioral assessments and training attempts, no one had ever seemed to understand Rex's pain the way this 7-year-old girl did. The real miracle happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon in the 4th week. Lily arrived with red eyes, having had a difficult day at school where some classmates had teased her about not having a father at home. She sat down heavily in front of Rex's kennel, looking smaller and sadder than usual. "I had a bad day, Rex," she said quietly, not opening her book. "Sometimes people say mean things, and it makes the hurt come back." Rex, who had taken to greeting her arrival by moving immediately to the front of his kennel, noticed her distress. He whined softly, a sound none of the staff had ever heard from him before. Then he did something unprecedented. He pressed his massive head against the chain-link fence as close to Lily as the barrier would allow, and let out a low, gentle rumble that was almost like purring. "You're trying to make me feel better," Lily said in wonder, reaching up to place her small hand flat against the fence directly opposite his head. "Thank you, Rex." They stayed like that for 20 minutes, connected through metal wire but somehow bridging a gap that had seemed impossible to cross. When Rosa arrived to pick up Lily that afternoon, she found her daughter smiling for the first time in days. "Rex made me feel better, Mama," Lily said as they walked to the car. "I think we're helping each other heal." That night, Dr. Williams updated Rex's behavioral chart for the first time in months. Under progress notes, she wrote, "Significant improvement in socialization and trust responses. Animal showing signs of emotional healing and attachment behavior." But the real test was still to come. It was Friday morning of the 5th week when everything changed. Lily bounced into the shelter carrying a small wrapped present and wearing her biggest smile. She'd saved her allowance money for 3 weeks to buy Rex a special gift from the pet store. "What's in the box, sweetheart?" Rosa asked as they walked toward the familiar corridor. "It's a surprise for Rex," Lily said mysteriously. "The lady at the pet store said it was perfect for dogs who need extra comfort." When they reached Kennel 12, Rex was already waiting at the front gate, as had become his custom. His tail gave a small wag when he saw Lily approaching, and he made a soft wuffing sound that Dr. Williams had started calling his hello greeting. "Good morning, Rex," Lily said cheerfully, settling into her usual spot. "I have something special for you today." She unwrapped the small package to reveal a soft, squeaky toy shaped like a duck. It was nothing fancy, just a simple plush toy from the discount bin. But she'd chosen it carefully because the pet store owner said yellow was a calming color for anxious dogs. "Look, Rex," she said, holding the duck up so he could see it clearly. "It's for you. When you feel lonely, you can cuddle with it, and it might help you remember that someone cares about you." Rex stared at the toy with intense curiosity. He hadn't shown interest in any toys during his 3 years at the shelter, but something about this moment felt different. Maybe it was the way Lily held it so carefully, or the genuine love in her voice when she explained its purpose. Lily squeezed the duck gently, and it made a soft squeaking sound. Rex's ears perked up immediately, and he tilted his head in that endearing way dogs do when they're trying to understand something new. "I'll leave it right here by the gate," Lily said, placing the duck on the floor near the chain link. "You can come get it whenever you want to." For the next hour, Lily read her usual stories while Rex kept glancing between her face and the yellow duck sitting just inches away from his kennel door. The toy seemed to represent something bigger than itself, a bridge between his isolated world and the possibility of trust. Around noon, Lisa came by to check on them as she always did. She found Lily coloring quietly in a book while humming softly, and Rex lying near the gate closer than ever before. But what caught her attention was the yellow duck, which had somehow moved from outside the kennel to just inside the gate. "Did someone put that toy in Rex's kennel?" Lisa asked quietly. Lily looked up from her coloring and smiled. "Rex took it himself. I saw him stretch his paw out real carefully and pull it inside. He's been carrying it around in his mouth for the last 20 minutes. Lisa felt her breath catch. Rex had never shown interest in enrichment items before. The fact that he'd actively reached for something, especially something given to him as a gift, was extraordinary progress. But the real miracle was yet to come. That afternoon, disaster struck in the most unexpected way. Lily was walking back from the water fountain when she tripped over a loose floor mat near Rex's kennel. She went down hard, scraping her knee badly on the concrete floor and twisting her ankle in the process. She sat on the cold floor, tears streaming down her face, looking at the blood seeping through her torn pants. The pain was sharp and immediate, but more than that, she felt embarrassed and scared. "Mama!" she called out, her voice echoing through the corridor, but Rosa was in the front office filling out volunteer paperwork and couldn't hear her daughter's cry. That's when something extraordinary happened. Rex, who had been watching Lily's fall through the chain link, began to whine. Not the aggressive growling that staff members were used to, but a high, concerned whine that sounded almost worried. He paced back and forth in his kennel, the yellow duck still clutched in his mouth, clearly agitated by Lily's distress. Then he did something that no one would have believed if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. Rex pressed his massive body against the gate and began to howl, not his usual territorial warning, but a deep, mournful call that echoed through the entire building. It was the sound of an animal in emotional pain, calling for help for someone he cared about. Dr. Williams heard the howling from her office and came running, expecting to find Rex in one of his aggressive episodes. Instead, she found Lily sitting on the floor, crying from her injuries while Rex pressed himself against the fence trying desperately to reach her. "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Dr. Williams asked, kneeling beside Lily to examine her scraped knee. "I fell," Lily said through her tears, "and Rex got scared for me. He's trying to help, but he can't get out to reach me." Dr. Williams looked at Rex, who was still whining and pressing against the gate, his amber eyes fixed on Lily with unmistakable concern. In 3 years, she had never seen him show this kind of emotional response to a human's distress. "He really is worried about you," Dr. Williams said in amazement. "Look at his body language. He's not showing any signs of aggression. He's just concerned." Lisa arrived moments later with Rosa, who had finally heard the commotion. As Rosa knelt to comfort her daughter, Rex's whining grew more intense. He dropped his yellow duck and pressed his nose through the chain link, trying to get as close to Lily as possible. "It's okay, Rex," Lily said softly, despite her pain. "I'm okay. Thank you for calling for help." At the sound of her voice, Rex's whining subsided slightly, but he remained pressed against the gate, his eyes never leaving her face. Dr. Williams made a decision that went against every protocol the shelter had established over 3 years of housing Rex. She looked at the genuine distress in the dog's eyes, the way he was trying so desperately to comfort the child who had shown him kindness, and she made a choice that would change everything. "I'm going to open the gate," she announced quietly. Rosa's eyes widened in alarm. "Are you sure that's safe?" "Look at him," Dr. Williams said softly. "Really look at him. He's not showing any signs of aggression. He's showing signs of love." Lisa and Rosa watched in tense silence as Dr. Williams slowly approached Rex's kennel with the keys. Rex saw her coming and stepped back from the gate, but his eyes remained fixed on Lily. He wasn't focused on the opening door or the opportunity for escape. He was focused entirely on the crying child who had become his world. The gate swung open with a soft creak that seemed to echo through the entire building. For a moment, nobody moved. Rex stood at the threshold of his kennel, free for the first time in 3 years, with nothing between him and the people he'd spent so long fearing and avoiding. Then, with movements as gentle as a whisper, Rex walked slowly toward Lily. Not with the aggressive posture everyone expected, but with the careful, deliberate steps of an animal who understood that this moment was precious and fragile. He approached Lily and, with infinite gentleness, lowered his massive head to nuzzle her injured knee. His touch was so soft that it barely disturbed the torn fabric of her pants. "Hello, Rex," Lily whispered, reaching out with a trembling hand to touch his scarred head for the very first time. The moment her fingers made contact with his fur, Rex let out a sound unlike anything anyone at the shelter had ever heard from him. It was part whimper, part sigh, and entirely full of relief. He pressed his head gently into her hand, closing his eyes as if he were experiencing something he'd thought was lost forever. "He's so soft," Lily said in wonder, her tears now mixing pain with joy. "And he's not scary at all. He's just been lonely." For 20 minutes they sat together on the concrete floor. Rex remained perfectly still, allowing Lily to pet his head and ears while Dr. Williams cleaned her scraped knee. His presence seemed to calm her pain, and her gentle touch seemed to heal something deep inside him that had been broken for years. When it was time to go home, Rex walked calmly back to his kennel without any coercion. But everything had changed. The gate remained open, and for the first time in 3 years, Rex chose to stay not because he was trapped, but because he trusted the people around him to keep him safe.